If you've watched the channel before, you know that I love vintage chronographs. But here's the thing about them. You're either paying a lot of money up front, or you're paying a lot of money when something inevitably goes wrong, and sometimes both. And that's why a watch like the Vaer R1 exists. Look, I'm not going to pretend that this is a 1960 Speedmaster or some forgotten Heuer gem, right? But what this watch is doing is it's nailing the vintage cream dial panda vibe without you having to explain to your wife why you spent mortgage money on a 50-year-old watch. The proportions are right, the details are callbacks to actual vintage pieces, and honestly, on the wrist, it just works. So let's talk about whether or not Vaer pulled this off. I'm Mace, and this is the Underground. To be upfront, I should note that Vaer provided the R1 to us for review, but no strings attached. During this video, I'm going to compare the R1 to my vintage chronograph collection, provide the specifications to you, and highlight one of the major surprises that I found with this watch. Hey guys, what I'd like to do is compare the Vaer R1 Racing Chronograph to some of the vintage chronographs in my collection. It's pretty obvious to me that this watch is inspired by the 1960s and 1970s chronographs that came before it. Obviously this one is quartz, right? But I think when you compare some of these to the Vaer, right, the inspiration is pretty clear. So the Vaer has dials in color at 3 and 9. There's also a seconds hand at 6 o'clock. The Heuer, right, has those two blue subdials at 3 and 9. You can see where some of that inspiration may have been drawn from, right? The Carrera is one of the biggest names in racing chronographs. And here we have a pretty good look at these two. So I'm going to share the Seiko 6139, right? Very different. This one has a subdial at 6. The case shape is pretty similar, right? You're definitely seeing how the modern Vaer is taking inspiration from those generations before us, right? Now these are going to be a little bit of a different comparison, right? This is my Breitling Datora from the 70s, right? This has subdials at 3 and 9 as well. They are not in different colors. Right. As you can see, they both have that kind of CK shape, similar to the Carrera and the Speedtimer, right? And then this one will be very different. This is the Flightmaster, right? This is that dizzying watch by Omega that was only in production for about 8 years. 3 subdials, right? A whole bunch of hands, 5 crowns and pushers, right? It's just very, very different, and the case is not going to be the same. It's kind of a bullet style case, but I think aesthetically you can see some similarities, right? The most obvious comparison that I can make is to the 1968 soccer timer that Omega put out. It has the black and orange subdial. To me, that's where this watch takes a lot of inspiration from. All right, guys, so the story behind Vaer is that it was founded by 2 friends, Ryan Torres and Regan Cook, back in 2016. This kind of astounds me. Could you imagine me and Max trying to figure out how to launch a watch brand from the ground up? How would we ever arrive at a similar mission statement? But these guys did it, right? They wanted to create an affordable everyday wristwatch, right? That would look great and would be suited for an adventure lifestyle. All right, guys, let's get to the specs. This watch is water resistant to 100 meters. It's got a locking screw down crown, 316 stainless steel. You can see it's got box crystal with anti-reflective coating, 20 millimeter lug width. It is 12.6 millimeters thick and is 38 millimeters across. Now they also make a 42 millimeter version of this watch, and their recommendation is if your wrist size is less than 7 inches, you should go with the 38. They say it will fit you nicely all the way up to 8.5 inches, but if you want a more robust, bigger presence on your wrist, then you would size up to the 42. I will say it looks perfectly fine on my wrist, right? Given that this is a racing chronograph, it has a moderate amount of lume. So the movement is a Meca-Quartz, a Seiko VK63. It's got a 40-month battery life. It has a -10 to +20 second per month timing tolerance. And the watch is assembled in the US. So guys, you've noticed I didn't go through the pageantry of opening the box and making a big spectacle out of that, but I did want to show what came in the box, right? So here we go. You've got certificate of assembly here, and then it has the instructions, right? This QR code will bring you to the Vaer website. This is the box where the watch came in, and then this is an extra strap, right? So this is the extra strap. Nylon, your typical NATO style strap. Comes with extra spring bars and the spring bar tool here, right? So, typical nylon strap, this one in tan here. They'll probably call it khaki. And they're pretty clear about where these things are manufactured, right? So they call this one khaki, and it's manufactured in China. All right guys, what I'd like to do is another comparison here. You can see I have this vintage Zodiac Seawolf, right? And keen observers being like, you know what, Mace, that's a dive watch. What the hell are you doing here? And you're totally right. There's aesthetically, this watch looks nothing like this one. But if you turn your attention to the strap here, this is an original Tropic style strap, right? And you can see that this rubber is sort of hardened and it's sort of molded around the cushion that it rests on in the case, right? But as you look at the rubber strap here, the Tropic style strap, right? This is FKM rubber, and it's really interesting to see the difference. Now, this strap here is probably 45 to 50 years younger than this one, but as I'm going to try as best I can not to smash these watches together, but to give you kind of a look at the straps. And you can see this one, the new one on the Vaer, is thicker and much more pliable, right? And I will tell you the experience of wearing this on the wrist is really comfortable. It is one of the more comfortable straps I've ever kind of worn. It's really great. This one, by comparison, as you can tell, is pretty stiff, not so pliable. You know, it's older too, right? So maybe some of the flexibility has gone away over the years, just kind of resting in cases. This watch is very clean, but if it's been resting in a case and the strap has just been molded to a cushion or whatever, you can see that it's just kind of stuck in position here. Now maybe I can bend that, but I think Vaer did a tremendous job. Plus it's got the quick release spring bars here. The one thing that I might complain about with this strap is that both of these keepers are floating, right? I tend to like my keeper, the first keeper, to be kind of affixed here, right? But sometimes I've got to track down both keepers as I'm putting this on. But otherwise, I think they did a tremendous job on this. Hey guys, this is a really fun video to make. I was able to take a look at the Vaer R1, really a very nice retro-inspired watch with a great strap. I was able to compare it to my vintage chronograph collection. I was able to compare the strap to really a 1960s Tropic style strap. So in the process, I discovered that it was a strap monster. So over the next 20 seconds or so, I'm gonna include a strap monster montage. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.